Good evening and welcome to the Warren City School District Board of Education regular meeting. Today is Tuesday, August the 10th, 2021. The time is 6:02 p.m. We are at Warren G. Harding High School in the cafetorium, broadcasting via WSCN with live streaming available at warrencityschools.org. This meeting is a meeting of the Warren City Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participating via email during the meeting as indicated in agenda item number 11. With that, I'll call the meeting to order, and if everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could we please call the roll?
Mr. Fowley?
Here.
Mrs. Patterson?
Here.
Mrs. Shannon?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Mrs. Lampiros?
Here. With that, we have no need for agenda item number 3, executive session, so we'll move on to agenda item number 4, communications. Mr. Shiro.
Thank you. I have one communication this evening. Each year, the Ohio Department of Education gives a rating for special education services in the district. The 4 possible ratings are meets requirements, needs assistance, needs intervention, or needs substantial intervention. I'm pleased to notify the board that the Warren City School District for 2021 has received a special education rating, the highest rating of meets requirements. This is the first time in my history and experience in the Warren City Schools that we have received the rating of meets requirements. So special congratulations to Jennifer Hoffman, her special education supervisors, all of our intervention specialists, and all of the classroom teachers that have made this possible.
Excellent. Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations, yes.
Thank you. Agenda item number 5 is the adoption of the agenda, and I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Lampiros?
Yes, motion carries and the agenda is adopted. Agenda item number 6 is our treasurer's report.
No
And we don't
report this
have
evening.
anything.
I thought I asked her to have a lengthy report tonight.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, agenda item number 7, our superintendent's report.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Lampiros. Tonight's superintendent's report is twofold. First of all, we're going to do a review of policy 8450.01. This is Board of Education policy entitled Protective Facial Coverings During Pandemic Epidemic Events. In essence, this is a policy which the Board of Education provides the superintendent with making the decision if during health conditions the requirement of wearing a facial covering or a mask would be required by individuals interacting in the Warren City Schools, students, staff, etc. As you are aware through our communications with the board attorney, Ms. Spencer, at our most recent Board of Education meeting, that there has been signed into law that to have one rule for vaccinated individuals, have one for unvaccinated individuals, is viewed as discriminatory, effective in October, as well as long as the vaccinations that are available are under emergency authorization use only. It's anticipated at some point that they would no longer be emergency authorization use and that things would all fall into place. However, under the advisement of legal counsel, we cannot create a mask mandate or facial covering mandate separating those vaccinated from those not vaccinated. Additionally, the guidance that I have received, consistent with CDC, consistent with American Association of Pediatrics, consistent with Ohio Department of Health, and directly stated from our Warren City Health Commissioner, John May, it is strongly recommended that all adults indoors in the Warren City Schools use a facial covering or mask while interacting with other adults. With this in mind, I put the communication out to our families this weekend. It was received by some in the mail as early as today. It's been posted on our website. and I'd like to read the following. This information, by the way, is also consistent with Board of Education Policy 8450.01. Warren City Schools Transportation Procedure and Expectation. All individuals will be required to properly wear a facial covering or mask at all times while on a Warren City Schools bus. Indoor procedures and expectations. All individuals will be required to properly wear a facial covering or mask while indoors, in common areas and in classrooms. Exception to this requirement is when actively eating or drinking, or when an individual is working independently in their own workspace, is utilizing a desk shield as a secondary barrier, and is socially distanced 3 feet or more from others. Additionally, indoor procedure and expectations would have an expectation of maintaining social distancing of 3 feet or more at all times. It would also, at the recommendation of the health department, advise individuals coming to the school, students and adults, to conduct a self-health assessment prior to reporting to a Warren City school. For younger students, this is the responsibility of a parent, adult, or caregiver. Individuals that are sick, have symptoms consistent with COVID-19, or a fever over 100.0 degrees needs to stay home until such time they are symptom-free for 24 hours without the use of symptom-reducing medicine, i.e. if you have a fever, you need to be symptom-free for 24 hours. Additionally, the use of hand sanitizer will be available in schools and is recommended for use. Outdoor procedures and expectations. The use of facial covering or mask is recommended, however, that remains optional. Social distancing is expected, and close group gatherings is discouraged, and hand sanitizer will be available and is recommended for use in outdoor settings as well. Additional mitigating factors, and I'm outside of reading my communication at this time, additional mitigating factors would include student cohorting in groups consistent with last year, increase of outside air and ventilation, pumping through our school buildings, classrooms, and common areas, air ionizers such as the ones in this room, and to filter along the way during the day. Some student groups eating in the cafeteria, some in classrooms. The reduction of students integrating with different groups consistent with cohorting. Drinking fountains to remain disabled and touchless water stations in place. And consistent with Board of Education policy that we passed earlier this summer, water will be provided to students, in areas in the hallways, as well as during lunch through bottles or touchless water stations. Temperature scanners will remain in effect in the buildings. Again, the health assessment, and I didn't emphasize this because the health assessment should take place at home prior to getting on a bus, prior to coming to a school. That is just a secondary layer that the scanners are in place. And again, their effectiveness can always be in question based upon climate conditions, cold air, warm air, sun, etc. So we are loosening some of our COVID protocols and procedures a bit, such as 3-foot distancing via 6. And our students will be able to be in classrooms at that rate. We are going to continue to have desk shields in classrooms. And the mandating of the facial covering is important because it guarantees, or increases, I should say, the likelihood that we'll have a better continuity of education for our students, meaning our students and staff will remain in class. Current procedure from Ohio Department of Health and adopted by the state of Ohio and the ODE states, if a universal masking policy is in place and facial coverings are properly worn, then contact tracing and quarantining will not need to take place should someone be in contact with another individual in a school setting with COVID. That'll keep our children in school. That'll keep our schools open. That'll keep our students engaging in extracurricular and co-curricular activities and athletics. So it is my disposition at this time that students and staff will utilize a facial covering or mask when school starts. This is based upon the data. This is based upon recommendations we're receiving from the local health officials. I've had multiple meetings and conversations over the last week, and I believe they are the individuals that are providing the information for which we follow. With that, is there any questions as far as what we're looking to have as an expectation?
Does anyone have any questions?
No, just that I fully support your decision.
As one with 2 children in the school, I fully support it too.
Yeah.
I do too.
Mr. Fowler?
Well, my only question is this enough? Okay, we're contemplating opening the stadium to 50%. I realize it's outside. Are the booths going to be open?
Yes.
People
I
forming
think
lines.
we'll cover that during
Yeah.
the athletic portion of the meeting, those questions, yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
any,
But I mean,
I
as
re-
far as, this would be in relation to school.
any recommendation that is coming from Health Commissioner May, and we are in strong agreement as far as, I can't speak for other schools inside of Warren or outside of Warren, or other county groups. Speaking for my relationship with our health commissioner, we have a strong relationship. We're on the same page. When the health commissioner puts in writing to me, that is his strong recommendation. I'm an educator. He's in charge of public health and safety. I have to rely on the public health and safety official to guide decision-making. And to me, this was an easy one
Yeah,
because you hired me to have the continuity of education in place for our children. If I see a pathway that we can do it safely, then that's the pathway that we need to go.
well,
Thank
I
you.
think that, as we navigated the school year last year, as we were trying to figure all this out, we relied heavily, this board trusted you and the administration heavily, and you in turn leaned on the local health authorities, and I think we did a tremendous job keeping everybody safe. So obviously you have the full support of this Board of Education to move forward as such, and, we will just wait for updates as we go along.
And to clarify, we never did rescind the masking expectation over the summer. Now, it got greatly relaxed in the month of July when the administrators in the district totaled 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Because the principals were off for the summer. Number of us were utilizing vacation time because it was summer versus the school year. So there were a number of days, we were few and far between, and were unable to adequately monitor those expectations. But as soon as the principals came back, their first day back, within 1 hour of our meeting, we were talking about what does this look like for the school year, and we rolled out Tuesday morning with going back to the expectation in our summer programs.
Yeah.
Immediate return to it. So this is something that has been in place. It's just in the summer it was a little relaxed. This will be following all the expectations, indoor masking. Indoor masking.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Second superintendent's report, I'd like to defer to Mr. Lacey, Executive Director of Business Operations, regarding an update of our facade porch restoration. Again, just to clarify, it is the porch on the front of the facade. It is not the facade.
The building.
It
Itself,
is
correct.
the porch
Yes.
sitting in front of the building that has heaved and shifted a little bit. With that, Mr. Lacey?
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Shire. I appreciate that.
No room for misinterpretation.
Yes. If you would want to look in your agendas to Exhibit K and L, we did receive 2 bids from 2 different companies regarding the repair, replacement of the porch. One company, both very good companies too, I might say. Graziano is a pretty well-known historical renovation company out of Pittsburgh. They came in at just about $199,450. And then we have Miller Yount, who is actually right now in the process of doing Stambaugh Auditorium, the steps at Stambaugh and the renovation involved there. They came in at $113,500. It's my recommendation, and we'll have this on the as a voting measure to accept the bid from Miller Yount. The one caveat to both bids is as items are removed from the porch. The initial plans are if a piece of limestone is deteriorated on one side, we're going to turn it over in the limestone and use it on the other side if it is appropriate. The problem becomes if it's not appropriate, and that's why I have kind of a part two, is if the repair of the porch becomes such that each one of those pieces of limestone, I was told by both companies, will cost approximately $750 per block. So if we need to replace 50 blocks, well then I'll be having a conversation with Steve and obviously then with you guys to see, do we want to pay the additional $50,000 for limestone, or part B is the actual estimate would be about $5,000 less if they don't use limestone for the porch and we just use a 4-inch concrete pad, stamp it so it would look appropriate, but again, it would not be the limestone block. So as we go down this process, some of it is going to be based upon discovery of, are we going to say this again, Steve? Peeling the onion back.
Just like any home renovation project.
Just like our previous project at Willard. Like, for example, the urns that are on front, those are hand carved. So if one of those happens to be cracked clear through, that's a lot. The one company said, well, we think there's a guy in Newcastle that still does this, you know.
Wow.
So there's going to be a lot of discovery with this. You know, obviously, you know, based upon the significance of the structure itself, we'll be in close contact as any of these items change as we go through this process. So what we wanted to do right now is kind of, are there any questions that you guys have regarding anything right now?
Anybody have any questions?
One slight question, maybe, it might not make any sense, but just assuming if it comes down, they take it apart, whatever condition it's in, is there any way they could coat it so it would last longer or anything like that
To
before
kind
they put
of
it back?
seal?
Yeah.
I'm not positive of that with the limestone, but we'll definitely,
I'm just curious.
I will cross that
And I
bridge.
do want to say I appreciate you providing options, even though I would not want poured porch as an option. I do credit you with bringing options. I just know I would not be in favor of that. But
Yeah.
again, we need to bring options.
Yeah.
Just, I don't want any misinterpretation from the minutes of tonight's meeting that that's something we desire to do.
Correct.
I can say, I don't desire to do that, but, you know, it's only my thoughts.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
John, on the contract on page 85, it talks about an alternate price. Can you explain that a little bit to me, please?
That's the concrete pad.
Oh, that's what
That's what you're
that's
talking
from
about?
Graziano.
Okay,
That was their alternate price if they used a concrete pad instead
Okay.
of the limestone.
okay,
And you can see on Miller Younts, on page 2 of theirs, they also have a deduction there,
okay.
if that were to be the course.
Thank you, John, thank you. Okay, got it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks
Mr.
for the
Lacy,
update.
Mr. Lacy, while you're up there, I just wanted to ask you one quick question. Can you give us a status update for the Willard project?
Oh,
Speaking of that sour onion,
Speaking of peeling back layers,
oh no.
woohoo, we're done.
Oh, really?
how about
I thought
that?
there was going to be
We,
more.
they're in the process of just Boak and Sons going through the punch list
Wonderful.
so that the warranty will be issued. And so there were a couple other ventilation things, but we are entirely under roof.
Oh,
There will be, the classrooms inside have all been, that had some water damage from previous years. They're all repaired.
wow.
One other thing that I promised Willard that we would do We pressure washed the exterior of the building where some grime had kind of been around where the roof was. That's all looks clean. We've planted some bushes, have more bushes coming. We're putting in new signs. So I promised my friends at Willard that with all the torture they were going through last year, that we would make this look as good as it did from day one. So we're in process of getting it there, and it looks really, really good. And hopefully
They were edging and mulching today when
Yeah.
Mr. Lacy and I would stop by.
yeah.
Very good.
Excellent.
So
Thank
we're
you.
excited that that's all done.
That's really
So,
good news.
Do we need to put in the
Yes.
cornerstone in the grand opening again?
no more. No. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Lacy.
you.
And that concludes the superintendent's reports for this evening.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to Board of Education committee reports. Agenda item number 8, athletics is up first. I saw something in the parking lot out there.
I think that answers your question.
Did you see it, Julie?
I did. I looked back actually, I was like, oh, how did I ride past that?
Good evening, everyone. Athletic update. First tennis match was to occur today. We had some bad weather come through, so we kicked off fall sports today. Golf starts tomorrow, so fall sports are getting ready to rock and roll. As for the stadium, I know Mr. Fowley had some questions about the stadium. We had a meeting yesterday with a lot of administrators, and we determined we're going to have 50% capacity in the stadium this year. What does that mean? That means that we're going to be sitting individuals every other row, and the aisle seats cannot be sat on. So that's kind of the game plan. That provides us with about 2,500 home seats and about 1,250 for the visiting team.
Can I make a comment, Mr. Nicholson?
Yes, sir.
To answer Mr. Fowley's question, because again, we were focused on the interior end of the school. We were directed by health officials that any guidance regarding athletic events is to come from OHSAA. OHSAA has given 0 modification.
You see me laughing.
We have implemented our social distancing policy of every other road 50%. If OHSAA was to come in here, it would be at 100%. So we are taking the proactive preventative, just like we're doing in the schools.
Yeah.
With that, that's an internal local decision. So I just wanted to be clear that that's something we determined, because when you're talking about social distancing, even outdoors distancing, if you're sitting right on top of person row after row after row,
Yeah.
that doesn't make a whole lot of logic and sense.
So it's every other row then? People will be seated.
Correct.
Okay.
As of today, I mean, things change by the
Yeah,
moment.
that's true.
And, you know, the one lawyer today, we were in a legal meeting, talked about pivoting. The big word is pivot. You got to be flexible, you got to be able to pivot. So as of today, we plan on every other row. I talked to Medina's AD today and told him what he'd have available. He was very good about it. As you noticed, if you pulled in, you probably saw some modular units out there. I also explained to him how our locker room facilities with the poured concrete would not be accessible to both teams this year. Therefore, we had to go to a plan B. Our freshman football team will be housed in that modular unit that's located over by the softball field. If you haven't seen it, ride by it tonight, maybe on the way out, take a peek at it. And our football team will go in there on game night for halftime and before the game starts. The visiting teams will be dressing in our boys' PE and girls' PE locker rooms. They have a door accessible from the outside. I talked to them about it, told them how much space there was. There's restrooms available, showers, dry erase boards, very good accommodations for the visiting team. So I spoke to Medina about that. They were fine. The visiting band, you'll notice there's some construction going on in the north end zone. One of the concerns was with the limited amount of seats up top and how high that is, and with students taking tubas and everything else, the heavy instruments, climbing, that's a pretty steep walk to that second floor over there. So we got bleachers that they're assembling as of right now. I saw them a little bit ago, and the visiting band will sit in the north end zone. And this will come into play in the following year when we start the project, and the band shall perhaps shut down. Our band will end up working out of the north end zone, and we may have to place the visiting bands up top for a one-year period. The good news about it, we got 2 large bands coming in. We got Medina's got 300 members, and Massillon has about 140. Next year, our opponents won't have that larger size of band, so most likely they'll go upstairs. Let me see here. Ticket-wise, we're going to electronic tickets. I'm proud to announce that the AAC, Callan, Fitch, Canfield, us are going to e-tickets. The only team that didn't want to do it was Boardman. So we're going to electronic tickets. All events, sporting events, will be purchased online. We will get the information out to our fans, our community, via Twitter, Facebook, Mollenkoff Stadium Facebook. We'll get it out there to them, along with the instructions. Season ticket holders, they've been tearing the phone up here recently, but I don't think they realize that, until the governor came out with something a week ago, and then the local health department had a meeting, I think Thursday or Friday, we really weren't sure how we were going to operate. I think we know what we're doing now. Letters went out to season ticket holders this afternoon, and I believe there was some emails sent out to them. Obviously, with every other seat, we're going to lose some of their season ticket locations. Therefore, the best thing to do was no reserved seats. They will get a pass. If you have 2 seats, you'll get 2 passes to get in. And when the gates open, you're fair game to go and sit in the rows that'll be designated to sit in. And, I think when we communicate to the community and our fans and everything about the importance of sitting every other row, we're going to strongly encourage them to mask up. Concessions will be open, Mr. Fowley. We will probably get the bank teller tapes out and try to, as we did last year, make a queue that they kind of stagger in and put some dots down or something to kind of establish that 3-foot distance. So that's where we're at. I don't know what else. Any questions?
I think the season ticket holders will be okay. I mean, they couldn't come last year. Let's put it that way, because we had limited it to, the students, the players, their families, and that. So I think, it's a step in the right direction. It's another transition year. And when our other project is done and unveiled, and we'll be
And in the
hopefully
letter, I
back
think
to
there was some
normal.
SEL in the letter that I understood their frustrations and empathized for them.
Yeah.
But I said, hey, the good part is you're going to be back, you're going to root our kids on, and it'll be a great experience for you.
Yeah.
And I want to emphasize, I don't want to hit rewind a year. We want our kids to have a season.
Right, exactly.
And I don't want to get back to that, but the reality is this is about our kids having a season, trying to control the transmission rate any way we can with our influence in the schools so that our kids have their seasons.
Yes.
That's our number one priority, that they have
We have to do
their
whatever-
academic opportunities, and if they're athletically driven, that they have their season.
Yeah. We have to do whatever we need to do to make sure that they have
I
season
want-
and that they stay in school. The schools remain
Excuse
open.
me. I want to let you know that the community will have access to quite a few tickets. We project 110 band members times 4, football team, including the freshmen, are somewhere towards 100 times 4 tickets. Cheerleaders, 25 times 4. So it wasn't like last year where it was very limited. We're
Yeah.
going to get a lot of community members that want to come to the game, our fans back. There's going to be a lot of tickets available. It's not a small amount. I think we'll be all right. And the games will be live streamed on WSCN once again, too,
Excellent.
for free.
Excellent.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
I think the live stream is wonderful,
Yeah.
that continues.
It's the quality of it, too.
What?
The quality
Oh, yeah.
of
Yeah.
the live stream.
And our commentators.
Yes.
Love our
Yeah.
commentators.
It's better than being there.
Yeah, Tom Bird is awesome.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Nicholson. Finance Advisory, I know that there were, what is it, September, I think?
Yes, I believe so.
For for a meeting, okay. Board policies and guidelines,
Other than
nothing.
what he went over this evening.
Okay, legislative, I don't have anything. Do you have anything?
No, I do not.
And there was nothing from Mr. Faulkner, so once, I guess, they get started over there, he'll have an update for us. Everybody's in limbo. All right, anything under old business? Okay, anything under new business? All right, let's move on to the agenda. On page 3, item 1, Mr. Fowley, please.
Treasurer's recommendations, minutes. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding the July 2021 board minutes be approved as submitted.
Second.
Call the roll?
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Lampiros?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 4, item 2, Mrs. Shannon, please.
Monthly financial statement. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding the July 2021 financial statement and short-term investments made by the treasurer during July 2021, Exhibit A, pages 42 to 43, be approved as submitted.
Second.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Lampiros?
Yes, the motion carries. On page 6, item 3, Mrs. Patterson, please.
The appropriation budgets. It is recommended the resolution listed below to approve appropriation budgets A through I be approved as submitted.
Second.
Takes you to page 12. Does anybody have any questions? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Lampiros?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 13, item 4, Mr. Walker, please.
Approve the application, accept the grant, and approve the grant appropriations. It is recommended the resolution listed below to approve the application, accept the grant, and approve the grant appropriation, A, be approved as submitted.
Second.
Any questions about this? Just very happy to see this one awarded to us. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lampiros?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 15, item 1, Mr. Fowley, please.
Superintendent's recommendations, agreements, contracts, and/or leases. It is recommended the resolution listed below, entering into agreements, contracts, and/or leases A through H, be approved as submitted.
Second.
Does anyone have any questions regarding these? Go ahead and call the roll, please.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Lampiros?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 18, item 2, Mrs. Shannon, please.
Revised salary table M exempt classified employees. It is recommended the resolution listed below adopting changes to salary table M exempt classified employees be approved as submitted with changes as recommended.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Lampiros?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 19, item 3, Mrs. Patterson, please.
Recognition of quotes to restore the front porch area of the Warren G. Harding facade. It is recommended the resolution listed below recognizing the quotes to restore the front porch area of the Warren G. Harding facade be approved as submitted.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Lampiros?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 20, item 4, Mr. Walker, please.
Sorry, I can't get my pages apart. All right. Awarding the contract to restore the front porch area of the Warren G. Harding facade. It is recommended the resolution listed below awarding the contract to restore the front porch area of the Warren G. Harding facade be approved as submitted.
Second.
Thank you. And thank you to my colleagues for emphasizing the front porch area. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Lampiros?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 21, item 5, Mr. Fowley, please.
Amended Resolution Motion Number 01-2021-27, Warren City Schools Athletic Council Meetings 2021. It is recommended the resolution listed below establishing dates for the Warren City Schools Athletic Council meetings for the 2021 calendar year be amended and approved as submitted.
Second.
Okay, and just to note, there were 2 changes. The August 10th meeting is now August 18th, and the September 16th meeting is now September the 9th, and those will be up on the website.
Yes, so these adjustments were made due to our potential of not having quorum for this meeting.
Thank you. All right, call the roll, please.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Lampiros?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 22, item 6, Mrs. Shannon, please.
Acceptance of gifts. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding acceptance of gifts be approved as submitted. At Gase Garden Center for $500 for flower pots, and Sam's Club for $5,000 for 29,000 face masks.
Second.
Very timely, thank you.
Very timely.
Very timely. Thank you very much to our benefactors. Do we have a second?
Yes. Second.
Thank you. Okay, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lampiros?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 23, item 7, Mrs. Patterson, please.
Tuition reimbursement. It is recommended the resolution listed below for tuition reimbursement be approved as submitted.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Lampiros?
Yes, and the motion carries. On page 24, item 8, Mr. Walker, please.
Personnel recommendations. It is recommended the resolution listed below regarding personnel items A through Q be approved as submitted.
Second.
Thank you. And that takes you through to page 39.
Wow.
Give you a minute. Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Lampiros?
Yes, and the motion carries. We'll move under,
What are retirements?
Yes. Page 33. Retirees, page 33.
oh, are there?
Okay.
Well, let's back up and,
Okay.
I think it's Roberta Butler and Diane Davis.
go ahead. I couldn't hear you. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
Roberta Butler and Diane Davis are retirees. We want to thank them for their service and their time here serving the students in Warren City.
Thank you. Okay. We did not have anything under public participation that was received by the deadline. We have no need for executive session, so at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Mr. Jewell, you want to
second.
second? You'll
Yes, I'll
second that,
second it.
Mr.
Yes, I
Walker?
will.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fowley?
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Lampiros?
Yes, motion carries. The time is 6:41 and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for joining us. Everyone be safe as we gear up for the start of the school year.
Go Raiders.
Go Raiders. Go all Raiders.